Alright, well, it's getting close to 420, and like I said, I was going to do some 420 stories, so let's just go ahead and do the Maz 420 story. I'll tell you guys the majority of the whole thing. Might take a minute, this might last a minute, but I'll do it as fast as I can. So, anybody that's heard me talk about my early history, I did bag seed, I did some corn field grows in Nebraska in the early 80s, probably by 84, 85, 86. By 87, we were fucking with bag seed indoors. Yep, yep. And I had seen. Now, the weird part is there's another part. I don't even want to get into that right now because that cut is what matters. And it's the Mishki Mazari Sharif Hindu Kush is what I'm going to get into. Okay, now, where it gets weird is when I got busted with it and I was separated with it from it for a while. And that's kind of the story, the part of the story that I am still curious of what happened. But the point is when you work with something that's that unique, and it's not even that it's super unique, it's just that when you work with something that long, you get to know it. I worked with it for 4 or 5 years before I got busted with it in '94, and that's on my record. Like I said, if somebody got into my record, if there's still my record in the Omaha Police Department for fucking 1994, I took Polaroids of that fucking picture, an Indica, in the early '90s, and it's a pretty bitch. But um, so not to make the story too long, like I said, I was kind of connected to some Hell's Angels back in the day, and the reason why that matters is the mother of the woman that had my first two kids lived in my basement at the time, and her uh, ex-husband was the guy that was the bouncer for the walking cane that handled all the Hells Angels. And it's kind of the reason, one of the places in Omaha, if anybody remembers what the walking cane bar was, Little Eddie Johnson, he was the bouncer. That would be the grandpa to my kids, my first two kids. So, and we're talking about the leaders of the Hells Angels as far as some of the other people that I knew. And I didn't know them guys, I knew their kids. I was asked, or not even asked, fucking just knew them, and I play guitar, and they wanted to learn bass and guitar, and it was Calvin and Dickie. I think I said their names, last names a couple times, so it don't matter now. Calvin's still around. Pretty sure he's locked up for life. Um, that doesn't really matter. What matters is that cut was released. I released that cut before '94, before I got busted, and that's why that matters. Um, the what the fuck is that? All right, so I was renting a house in Omaha, Nebraska in the mid 80s, about 88 or 89. I had, like I said, her name's Honey, and it's like I said, the mother to Jamie, the first mother of my first two kids. Her mom lived in my basement. They were renting, and she lived with a dude named Jerry Knuth. Jerry Knuth he was a fucking grower, and he was a sativa grower. He's a really good fucking sativa grower, and they lived down there for a couple of years, and we both grew a bunch of pot. He kind of schooled me. He's the guy that taught me the very first time to kind of get into really dialing in pot. Because like I said, I had done some cornfield shit and fucked around in my bathroom, and I was still growing in my bathroom at the time. He was in the basement, and Honey Lee's still around. Oh, there she is. That's her name right there, Honey Lee. And yeah, her and Jerry was in the basement. Okay, so where it gets funny is Jerry is a weird dude, man. He knew a lot of people, and one of the dudes that cruised through our place was this big fucking dude out of Oregon, man. And he was a guitar player, and he heard me upstairs playing, and I had a classical guitar at the time, and he come in my place, he picked up my guitar, and fucking destroyed it. Just played the fuck out of it, a classical. And he's a big, huge dude, sausage fingers. I'll tell you guys his first name. His first name's Randy. All right, and he's a session player. I'll tell you that much. He's plays for high-profile musicians as a session player. I can say that much for sure. Connected to Jerry Knuth, and these are facts. This isn't a story. This is exactly what happened. This is my life, and the people I know that are still involved with it. Okay, so that dude picked up my guitar and he pulled out the first kind bud I'd ever seen. That was probably 1988. And we're talking from when you used to get bagweed, brown bud, fucking maybe some Thai would come through, some haze would come through, some Afghan, kind of maybe, not even a shitty Afghan. Mostly just skunks would roll through at the time, just regular bagweed. But then this indica, pure, no seeds. And this, even though it become kind of sensimilla a little bit before that, this was different. Kind bud was the next level. It was the best of any indica. It was the first indica, period. And I didn't see the clones yet. This is just the bud. He pulled out the bud, pardon me, twisted up a fat old cone. We smoked it. Took me to a whole different level of smoking pot. Okay, so I had smoked good pot prior to that. Probably some really good imports because of my best friend's dad is the one that kind of got it. And then they knew the Hells Angels. So we had a pretty good drug hookup, honestly. All right, so now, a couple days later, he comes back with a box. 5 of those cuts, rooted, ready to go. He sells them to me for $5 a pop. Tells me that's the kind, bud. This is the Mazar Sharif Hindi Kush, and there's one note, like I said, the age of that cut. I'm not going to talk about that right now, but the people I do seriously talk about that cut to, well, I'll tell them the rest of that story. Anyway, that's the guy I got it from. Okay, and so I ran that cut from 1988 or 89 to 2000 to 1994, and I got popped because we had to move it. The place I was living, they were selling the house, and they were going to dig up the whole property. So we had a couple days, an inspection within a couple days, and I had to move it. It was 10 plants, about 3 weeks into bloom. They were about, so big. They're Maz. It was the same Maz, that fucking Maz. Yep, they're only about 3 foot, not even that, 2 foot tall, about 3 weeks into bloom. When we moved them in the middle of the night, we moved them. I'll give you advice right now. Never move an operation. Tear it down or figure it out, but moving is just not a good idea. So we bagged them up and moved them in a van, and I think my neighbors saw us. They flagged us. They watched us for 2 days, hit our phones, hit us within 2 days. They hit me at work at Perkins Restaurant on 72nd in Omaha, Nebraska, Grover Street. They came in at about 11:30 at night, and I was in the kitchen cooking. The house we took the plants, they hit all 3 of it at the same time. They hit the house I was renting, where the plants were to begin with. They hit the house where we moved them to, my partner's house, and they hit the place I was working all at the same time. And that was my first bust in 94, and it was manufacturing of cannabis for felony 3, 1 to 20. But I never had a charge, so it was dropped to a possession. It was over 2 pounds. They weighed it all up, blah, blah, blah. That's the beginning of the Maz, and the first time I got separated from it, but I already distroed it in Omaha at that point, okay? Now we're at 94. I don't fuck with pot for a couple of years, and then I start dicking around. I fuck with it a little bit more, and then I'm just get sick of Omaha, and I go to Kansas. Now by this time, seeds are flowing. Now we're at fucking mid-90s, starting to get into the late 90s. Seeds and cuts are now shit's flying everywhere. And it's a different game. But in the early 2000s, late 90s, after I was in Kansas, I was dicking around there for a little while. I was there for about 10 to 12 years. And then I came back to Omaha, and somebody gave me that cut back. Shit you not. And the funny part is, they didn't know what they were giving me. I was just hearing about this cut that was called Maz, and it was from the older people in Omaha that hold the Williams and shit like that. The Willie's Wonder cut that's in Omaha. Yep, them old boys. And people know who I'm talking about if they know who Gandalf is. And somebody that knows them people, yep, I got that cut. Now, I didn't realize it was the same one till I grew it out. Because once you grow something out like that, and you grow it for so many years, you know it up and down like your own balls. Yep. And that's the Maz. And it came back to me. Same fucking cut. And there is one differential between the original one that I got and the cut that I got back the second time, but I'll talk to the people in Omaha about that. But that's the straight up history on that on my mother's grave. Yep. And then, like I said, the history behind that same cut somehow got over to fucking Dutchland, because that's half of the Dutch Passion's original Skywalker, which is a Mazar crossed to a blueberry male. That Mazar mom, that's the Mishku. 100%. Took second place in 1999 High Times Cup, and took second place in the 2002 High Life Cup. I got it on the cover of Skunk Magazine 2014 for January. It's in the Hot MILF section of that same magazine. Yep. That's that Maz. Enjoy it. Hope y'all have a good 420. Stay tuned.